A box of laundry powder that's been sitting in your utility closet for years can wipe out an ant colony, stop a roach infestation, and save your tomatoes from aphids. And it costs less than a single bottle of the spray you bought last spring. Not repel, not slow down, wipe out. And the strange part is, this isn't some new discovery. It's something farming communities have quietly relied on for generations, while the rest of us were sold something shinier, more branded, and a lot more expensive. You know the feeling. You walk into the garden aisle every spring and there's a whole wall of bottles. $12 here, $18 there, each one promising to handle a different bug, and half of them stop working the moment it rains. Inside the house, it's the same story. You call an exterminator, you sign up for a quarterly contract, and a year later, you've spent $400 or $500 and you're still finding ants in the kitchen. The problem was never that pest control is hard. The problem is that the industry built around pest control needed you to believe it was hard because a permanent $2 fix doesn't generate a recurring service contract. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about much. Some of the cheapest, oldest household chemistry is also some of the most effective, and it never went away. It just stopped being marketed. Long before pest control became a subscription service, rural households were mixing their own dust and bait out of nothing more than a mineral scrub used for laundry. It wasn't a secret so much as it was unglamorous. There's no packaging design, no shelf placement fee, no brand to build around a box that already existed in everyone's laundry room. So even as agricultural extension offices in the early to mid-1900s documented these mixtures in small regional bulletins, the post-war chemical industry, flush with new synthetic pesticides developed out of wartime research, simply outmarketed them. By the 1960s, most of those bulletins were gathering dust in filing cabinets, not because the method failed, but because there was no profit motive in keeping it alive. Farming households that didn't rely on retail supply chains kept using it anyway, generation after generation, simply because it worked and cost almost nothing. So why does a box of Borax do what a $15 spray can't? The chemistry is almost embarrassingly simple. Borax is a mild mineral salt, toxic to insects in small doses, but not fast enough to kill on contact. That delay is the whole trick. An ant that touches a strong poison dies right where it stands, and its colony barely notices. But an ant that eats a slow-acting bait carries it home first, feeds it to the workers, feeds it to the larvae, feeds it to the queen, and 3 days later, the whole colony collapses together instead of losing one soldier at a time. It's less like a bomb and more like a Trojan horse. You're not trying to kill the bug in front of you. You're trying to reach the nest you'll never see. For ants specifically, the ratio matters more than most people realize. Mix it too strong, and the worker dies before making it back to the nest. And you've wasted your bait on one ant instead of the whole colony. A gentler mix, roughly 1 part borax to 3 parts powdered sugar, keeps the bait attractive enough that workers carry a full load home before the borax catches up with them. For roaches and silverfish, where you actually want a faster kill, a stronger 1-to-1 mix with powdered sugar or flour works better, dusted in a thin line, never a pile, along the paths bugs actually travel at night, behind the fridge, under the stove, along the baseboards. The garden application follows the same logic once you understand who's really running the show out there. Aphids rarely show up on their own. In most gardens, they're being farmed, quite literally, by ants that protect them from ladybugs in exchange for the sweet honeydew aphids produce. Spray the aphids directly, and you might knock back the population for a day. But the ants will keep bringing more. Break the ant colony with a bait station near the base of the plant instead, using an old bottle cap or a small punctured container so nothing but ants can reach it. And the aphid population tends to collapse within a few days on its own once the guards are gone and the ladybugs and lacewings move back in. For the rest of the yard, a lot of longtime gardeners use what amounts to a perimeter routine, a thin line of the borax sugar mix traced along the outside base of the house foundation, especially near weep holes, utility entry points, and any gap where insects funnel in from outside, plus the same treatment around the base of raised garden beds and fence posts. It has to stay dry to keep working as a surface dust, so it goes under eaves in covered gaps, never out in the open where rain will wash it into the soil. Done twice a year, in spring and again in early fall, it tends to interrupt the roots ants and roaches use to get into a structure in the first place, rather than just killing the ones you happen to see. Inside the house, the same basic mixture handles pantries and closets, just applied differently. A thin dusting brushed along the back seam of pantry shelves, where the shelf meets the wall, is enough to deter the moths and beetles that get into flour and grain without ever touching food directly. In closets, a small cloth sachet filled half with cedar shavings and half with plain borax combines a scent insects avoid with a substance that handles anything that gets past the cedar anyway, which lasts considerably longer than cedar alone. On carpet, a light dusting worked into the pile with a stiff broom and left several hours before vacuuming can disrupt flea eggs sitting down in the fibers where sprays and vacuums alone rarely reach. None of this makes borax some miracle cure-all, and it's worth being upfront about the limits. It's a mild toxin, not a harmless one, and it shouldn't be left in the open around children or pets. Every application here calls for either a covered bait station or a spot pets and kids can't get into. It also doesn't work as a spray on contact the way a commercial pesticide does, so if you're expecting an instant kill, you'll be disappointed for the first few days. And for some claims, tied to specific historical figures or exact sounding results, honestly, the paper trail is thin. What survives clearly is the underlying chemistry and generations of households that relied on it long after the retail market moved on to something more profitable to sell. What you're left with, at the end of all this, isn't a conspiracy. It's just a reminder of how much genuinely useful, low-cost knowledge quietly gets crowded out the moment there's more money in convincing you the answer has to be complicated. The fix here was never hidden underground somewhere. It was sitting in the laundry aisle the whole time, next to the flour and the sugar, waiting for someone to ask why the simplest thing on the shelf still works better than half of what's marketed to replace it.